Okay, hi everyone. It's Friday night and I'm back in my apartment, or back in my bed actually, here in Singapore. Just finished with Fox Sports, so just left the studios. Just did Formula Friday, if any of you caught that. And it was a good day, you know. It was really nice to see Formula 1 cars go around the A1 ring. Well, it's no longer called the A1 ring in Austria, it's actually called the Red Bull ring. And it was actually nice to see race cars, Formula 1 race cars that is, go around that track again. It's in a beautiful part of the world, and it's an interesting track. I mean, if you look at it just from the very beginning, it looks like a very simple track. You know, there's a lot of long straights followed by hairpins or 90-degree rights. Not many fast corners, not fast sweeping corners. It looks pretty ordinary. And as a driver, when you first go around, you think, oh, okay, pretty simple. But and there's also the amount of corners there is. There's only 9 corners on the track, of which 2 aren't really corners, they're more straights. So only really 7 corners on this whole track, so it makes it quite simple. But there is a bit more to it, and that really is to do with the elevation changes. Lots of up and downhill. It's in amongst a lot of hills, and what makes it interesting is the elevation changes that you see at this track. You see it, how it affects the braking of a Formula 1 car or any car perfectly, because what we see is we have 2 corners which you brake on a very high uphill gradient, turns 1 and turns 2. And then you have a downhill gradient through turns 3 and the penultimate corner, turn 8. So it does mess up the braking a bit, and I just enjoy watching that, because if you go into braking 1 and 3, you're actually going up a hill. So the weight, if you imagine a car when it's level, the weight balance is kind of fixed. I can't remember what the weight balance is in the moment, but I think it's something not too far away from like 60% at the rear, 40% at the front. But when you go uphill, the weight actually shifts. So there's more weight on the rear axle compared to the front axle. So what that means is that the front wheels will lock up a lot. And that's what we saw today in Formula Friday, and I'm sure we'll see it in qualifying tomorrow as well, is that the front tires are locking up all the time into those corners and struggling to stop. Now, you can't just wind the brake pressure to the rear, because then you have 2 other corners which are downhill. And those corners that are downhill, turns 3 and 8, then it's the opposite effect happens. You have the weight all on the front axle. So what then happens is you tend to lock the rears up. And that will make the car a bit squirrely under braking. So ideally, you need to be able to change the weight balance front and rear as you go around the lap. And I'm sure the drivers are trying to do that and to get the most out of optimizing the braking at that track. And that's really key to doing a quick lap time around Austria, is braking, because you've got those long straights, and when you're coming from that sort of high speed, if you can brake a fraction later, you can make a lot of time on the stopwatch. So that's very important. And it's even more complicated this year because we have the brake-by-wire system. Because they're harvesting energy through the rear axle, we've seen throughout the whole year that drivers and teams have really struggled to optimize the system so that you can still harvest through the rear axle, but just getting it right so it's not harvesting too much, and then the braking is either too little or too much at the front. And getting that compromise is tough. So it's made it even more tricky here in Austria, and that's why we've seen a lot of cars off the road, and I think we'll continue to see a lot of cars off the road. But the team that can do that the best will be the team that's going to be at the front. I mean, shall we say 3rd place, because it looks like it's still going to be a Silver Arrows domination. It's going to be between Hamilton and Rosberg for the race, but it's going to be very close at the back, and I'm going to enjoy watching to see who can fill that final podium position. That's all for me from now. See ya.